Hi folks, this is Dr. Rob Cywes, and at about 4 o'clock a couple of mornings ago, I was busy feeding the carb addiction kid, my little son Rian, and as I was sitting there feeding him some breast milk, this thought happened to me. You know, the breast milk that comes from his mother is, number one, pure carnivore. Number two, it is produced by his parent in exactly the right proportions with the right constituents for the ideal nutrition for that baby. Now, when we use formula, in the laboratory we've tried to match that formula, but we've used our biases against saturated fat and for sugar, and we've modified, and against salt, and we've modified what goes into that formula. So that baby is, number one, not only getting what's in breast milk, but it's also, that baby that's fed formula is also getting a bunch of broken down pre-formatted constituents that may not necessarily be in the right proportions. Now, always honest on these videos, whether I'm right or wrong, I'm always honest. My wife has struggled to produce adequate breast milk. It's one of those things. We've tried really hard. It's not because of a ketogenic diet, but we have to supplement with some of that formula. And that's what got me thinking. So here's something that I thought about in a broader context. And I wrote it down. When we eat meat, when we eat animal products that came from the animal, we are actually eating intact animal cells with the cell membrane, with all the bits and pieces that are in that animal, that are in the cells, as well as the connective tissue and everything else that forms that animal product. And in that meat that we're eating, if it's in the right proportions, we have a significant amount of cholesterol. We have phospholipids as well as triglycerides. And those are the things that we're eating. We're eating the protein, but we're also eating the fiber and the collagen and everything else in the right proportions that made us human in the first place. When we eat manufactured food, we are eating pre-digested food in the form of glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. And it may try to represent the animal products we're eating. And it's not about when we're eating pre-digested or manufactured food. It isn't so much about what's in there. In large part, it's about what's not in there and the proportions that it's not in there in. But also, when we eat manufactured food, we have to contend with humanity's preconceived biases against saturated fat, against salt, saying that polyunsaturated fatty acids are so healthy. And that becomes nutritionally very problematic. Forget about carbohydrate addiction or anything else like that for a moment. Let's just talk about adequate nutrition in adequate proportions. So the question is, when we are eating glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids by design in a bottle, in a jar, or in a processed food, are we getting the right proportions for our own cells? In addition, as mammals, when we eat plants exclusively, are we getting the right omnicarnivorous, carnivorous mammalian proportions of fatty acids, protein, cholesterol, and sugar that we actually need from a pure plant-based diet? I have no problem with eating vegetables from time to time, but when we're exclusive, are we getting what we need? And when we eat plants, folks, we certainly don't get adequate ratios of mammalian food. In addition, plant cells, the cells of the plant, don't just have a cell membrane, they have a cell wall. And human beings have lost the capacity to break that cell wall down. We're unable to digest it because we do not use bacteria predominantly in our digestive system. And this makes a plant-based diet significantly inferior to an animal-based diet for humans. So while I do eat plants, I eat them for the enjoyment, but I eat animal products as close to straight from nature as I can get them for my nutrition. Now, I understand we heat them up, we modify them. I understand that. I understand that a lot of the animals we eat have been genetically modified, but they're still a hell of a lot closer to what we were designed to eat in our intestine and everything else. And as I was sitting there feeding my little son, I thought about that. Because for the most part, if there's any transformation that I've made in my own personal diet, and I advocate for you, is to eat real food. Eat food where when you look at that food, whether it's animals or plants, when you look at that food on your plate, you can tell which animal or plant it came from. If it's mush, if it's manufactured, if it's juiced, if it's fermented, the more we've transformed the food, the less it is the proper human nutritional requirement. Just a thought from 4 o'clock in the morning. Think it through, folks. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, and follow us on Facebook. I may or may not get back to the comments. I'm still a working guy in the trenches, so time is important. And if you've got a few extra bucks and you like our content, throw it to us at Patreon so that we can keep these videos free. Take care.